Hey everybody, this is day 21 on the journey of transformation. So welcome back. I have not posted in about 2 weeks now, um, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is in this video. But first, just give you guys a quick update. The goals that I set, the goals that I've set for myself so far have been not to quit eating sugar, which has been completely successful. I haven't had any sugar in 21 days, so 3 weeks with no sugar, and that includes no bread or anything that's made from bread, like cake, cookies, pizza. Yeah, no bread. Um, and then the other thing I did was I said I was going to start drinking a couple of teas. I was going to drink rosehip tea and Pau d'Arco tea. Both of those were basically to boost my immune system. Both of those teas have really strong antibacterial, antiviral properties. So it just would really decrease my chances of getting sick and just boost my immune system in general. So that was one thing I did back near the beginning, and I've also continued to do that. So that's been successful. Um, I started doing deep breathing exercises, which is kind of more of like a meditative thing and a kind of a way to de-stress and relax. And I've continued to do those now for ever since I started on a daily basis. So that's gone well. Um, Working out, I had committed to work out 4 days a week, um, and my goal was to basically just show up at the gym. My commitment was actually to get to the gym 4 days a week, and so that hasn't gone as well as I'd hoped. I've actually averaged about 2 days a week, um, which is okay. I mean, I didn't keep the commitment I made, but the goal is not to like beat yourself up. Uh, yeah, self-flagellation is not the goal. Here, it's basically to say, okay, what can I learn from how things actually went, as opposed to how I hoped they'd go, and then make necessary changes and adjustments and kind of improve. So, yeah, in terms of working out, yeah, I guess the other thing I had committed myself to was to come up with 5 new design ideas a day. That was a business goal because my business requires a big design effort. That one has been a complete failure. I've literally come up with maybe 5 designs in the last 3 weeks, not 5 a day. So that one has really flopped. So the way I look at setting goals and making commitments to myself and then not keeping them is to figure out, number one, what maybe a more realistic goal is for me. Um, because I mean, setting a goal for like doing 5 designs a day, that was kind of arbitrary. Setting a goal for getting to the gym 4 days a week, arbitrary. Um, but now what I've realized is that, okay, I got to the gym twice a week, so that's clearly a realistic goal. So the first thing I can do is I can say, well, maybe 4 days right now isn't realistic. I did 2 pretty easily. Maybe we can up it to 3 and set 3 days a week as a realistic goal. So I'll make that adjustment over the next week, and try and shoot for 3 days a week instead of 4. Um, and then in terms of design ideas, instead of 5 a day, I'm just going to try and do one a day. And so that's the first thing. I made an adjustment. Basically my failure to keep the commitments was information that I just needed to evaluate and say, okay, what's actually more realistic right now given where I'm at. And so we make the adjustments and we set more realistic goals. So that's the first thing. The second thing the second thing that's really important to learn from failure to keep commitments to yourself is to ask the question why. Like, what was it that kept me from doing what I said I was going to do? Sometimes there are practical sort of life circumstance reasons that make it really, really difficult to keep a goal. But most of the time that isn't the case. Most of the time, failure to keep a goal has something to do with fear. So this is something I realized when I stopped eating sugar after, like, during the first week of not eating sugar. I started to realize that I was experiencing not so much physical pain or withdrawal, but there was a psychological pain, a really strong feeling like I've got to go eat sugar. And when I started actually being a little bit more self-aware and just sitting with my feelings and emotions, I realized that there were things that were coming up, like insecurity, depression, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, a whole bunch of things, which all have at their foundation, all of those emotions have at their foundation fear. So I think what I've realized is that when I don't keep a commitment to myself, when I find it difficult, I need to ask myself, what's the fear that's preventing me from doing this, and how can I face that fear head on, and instead of running away from it. So, like, for instance, with sugar, I realized, that there was when I stopped eating sugar, I realized, okay, I'm using this to anesthetize myself against pain. Sugar just becomes an anesthetic. It becomes a way of feeling a little bit of pleasure in a sea of pain, and balancing things out a little bit, and feeling a little bit more hopeful. But I think the deeper fear for me, as I thought about it, with that sort of arose from not eating sugar, was a fear that this is like the most pleasure I'm ever going to experience. This is actually the happiest I'm going to be when I'm eating this donut. Like, there's a deep kind of rooted belief or fear of something in me that says, like, this may be the best I'm ever going to get, so I've got to actually take it. Instead of believing that actually, no, anything's possible. There are a million things that I can achieve and experience if I'm willing to make the sacrifices in the short term. So, but that was just like being able to identify that fear, or the fear that things might not ever get any better than just being able to experience this donut. As ridiculous as that might sound, it was a legitimate fear. I think it is a legitimate fear that I have, and something that I've got to face head on, and just begin to tell myself the truth, which is that's there's no way that I'm limited. I'm limited to just the experience of eating something sweet to feel good. There's a lot more that's possible. So I think fear, the same thing with working out. I think for me, like, what happened in the past couple of weeks is I worked a lot, and I spent a lot of time figuring out how to get work and how to make money, because I have my own business. And that's really deeply rooted in a fear of not having enough money, or just not having enough. And so that fear made me work probably more than I should have, and made me feel like if I spent time going to the gym, that's actually time I could have been spending earning money or figuring out how to make money. So that was that fear was an impediment to me, the fear of not having enough. So another fear that I identified through this process of setting goals and not actually achieving them. And it's really important to identify the fears because you've got to figure out how to actually face them head on and change the belief system in which those fears are rooted and from which they derive their power. So, so that's kind of the thing I've been thinking about a lot is just this idea that fear is at the root of why we don't do most of the things we know we should do, or even the things that we want to do. And so my mission now is to use this. One of my missions is to use this experience to identify fears and change the belief systems in which those fears are rooted. So just wanted to share that with you guys. And